Hello again, everyone. Welcome to my latest video. Today I'm going to tell you about our recent port stop at Vigo, Spain, and talk about the excursion that we took to the town of Baiona, Spain. First, if you haven't listened to my previous two videos, please like and subscribe to my channel, and then go back and listen. I describe our cruise on Norwegian that we took back in June from Southampton to Barcelona, and then also I talk about in the other video our first port stop in La Coruña, Spain. Our second port stop on this cruise was in Vigo. If you listen to my first video on the NCL cruise, you know that our itinerary changed a couple of times just weeks before we set sail. Originally, we were supposed to go to Porto, Portugal, but that stop was canceled and it was replaced with a stop at Vigo. One of the excursions at this port stop really caught my attention. That was the scenic view of Vigo and Baiona. We found out that Baiona had some history related to Christopher Columbus, and it was the place where the Pinta returned after it had been to America. So this was the first place that found out about the discovery of the New World. Our port stop time in Vigo was 7 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. and the weather there was a little bit chilly that morning. It warmed up later in the afternoon. I think it got up to about 70 degrees or so, maybe a little mid 70s, and then around 26 degrees Celsius. So it actually turned out to be a pretty nice day. We connected early that morning with our NCL group and the excursion, and we took a really nice bus ride from Vigo to Baiona. It took about an hour or so for us to get there, but it was a good scenic ride all the way there, and we didn't stop until we got to Baiona. The guide gave us a lot of detail along the bus ride about the Galatian people, and then he talked about some points of interest in the area. One specifically was the Santiago de Compostela. Talked a little bit about that in my last video of La Coruña, but that is a Christian pilgrimage site. It's actually only one of 3 of the major pilgrimage sites for Christians in the world, and it's about an hour north of Vigo, so might be something to check out if you have some time. After we arrived in Baiona, the bus took us to a statue called the Virgin de la Roca. It's a 50-foot statue and was built in the early 1900s. We stopped here, and after a short walk, the payoff was a beautiful, absolutely beautiful coastline view from that area. And honestly, in the week, 10 days that we spent all over Spain, I would have to say that that had to be at least one of the top 5 scenic views of every place that we stopped. It was beautiful. I really wanted to just sit there and look at that for a while, but we didn't have time. It was a quick stop, and we had to board back onto the bus, and then we drove back down off the mountain down to Baiona. We parked next to the Fortaleza de Montreal, which is a fortress in Baiona, and some of that was built as early as the 1100s. We only had a couple of hours to explore the town on our own, so we decided not to spend any of the time in the fortress. As soon as we exited the bus, the first thing we saw was the Aguada well. In the harbor is a replica of the Pinta ship, and my wife, my son, and I walked to that. It cost about, I think it was maybe about 2 to 3 euros a piece, so not too expensive. And we probably spent about 30 minutes walking around on the ship and exploring it. They had it set up just as it would have looked back when Christopher Columbus and the sailors were on that ship. So spent some time there, explored the top and the bottom of the ship, and then went into town to explore the town a little bit. Unfortunately for us, the town, a lot of things were closed. It was still relatively early in the morning, and it was a Sunday, and what we found out both in Vigo and in Baiona is on Sunday a lot of things were unfortunately closed. So they had a couple of cafes open, maybe a couple of souvenir shops. We just walked around and explored some of the streets, took some pictures. One of the things to look for, they have some beautiful doors and unique doorknobs in the area, so we took some pictures of that and just explored the area a little bit and then walked back to the bus. Once we were back on the bus, our couple of hours were up, everyone else was boarding, and we drove back in a little bit of a different route back to Vigo. Along the way, when we got very near Vigo, we stopped at Castro's Fortress, which this was built in 1652 1855 by the Spanish Empire. We were at Castro's Fortress for a very short period of time, so we didn't really get any time to explore the grounds that much. The guide took us up to the top to where the scenic views were, and it was beautiful. You could look out over the city of Vigo and look out at the harbor. We could see our cruise ship from there. So I've got some pictures of that, and that was, that's become one of my favorite family selfies that we took, was in that area. So after that, back on the bus, drove through the town of Vigo and then back to our ship. And at that point, it was getting pretty close to the all aboard time. A lot of things were closed anyway, so we decided just to get back onto the ship and have a meal. So that was all the time that we spent, probably a total of we were off the boat about 5 or 6 hours. So with that, my likes and my dislikes are really going to be based off Baiona more so than Vigo, even though that was our port stop. So for sure, one of the things that we really liked about Baiona was the scenic views. I already mentioned it. The spot next to the statue was amazing, and then other views around the area were beautiful. From there you could see just the coastline. You could actually see the fortress kind of off in the distance. There were sailboats sailing around in the ocean. You could see the blue water crashing onto the rocks, little islands. It was really an amazing scene, an amazing picture. And I took some pictures, and you look back at them and they really don't do it justice, but that for sure was a beautiful spot, and probably the thing that I liked the most, and even with my whole trip, was one of my favorite times on our vacation. The second thing that I liked, I really have to talk about the history of that area. We're from America, and we've known about Christopher Columbus all of our life. I learned about him in school and everything, and the discovery of the New World. So it was really just amazing to kind of bring all that back home and understand that all the things that we learned about, now we're actually in that area where they returned back, where they first heard about the discovery of the New World. Seeing the Pinta there, and getting to see that replica, the well, there was some signs there around to read about. So all of that was really neat. So that was for sure one of the things that we liked about this port stop. And then the third thing that we really liked about this trip was the stop at Castro's Fortress. So I think it would be really neat if you had some time to spend there, maybe an hour or so, to really explore it. We were only there probably 20 minutes, and it was really more just to get to the top and see the scenic view and get some pictures. They had some people out there playing Spanish music, and the atmosphere was really nice. But again, the scenes were beautiful. It was one of the most beautiful places from a scenery standpoint of anywhere we've been, both Baiona and Vigo. So definitely that would be our number 3 on the list. So from a dislike standpoint, honestly, I can't really think of any. The only thing that I would say is, if you go to Baiona or Vigo, know that if you're there on a Sunday, a lot of things are going to be closed. That was really more of an unfortunate thing than a dislike, but it was something that we weren't able to explore and see some of the things that we really wanted to because of that. So just be aware, if you're there on a Sunday, there's going to be a lot of things that are closed. One other tip that the driver gave us on our way back to the boat was that Vigo is actually the best place in Spain to see Christmas lights. So I didn't know that. I looked it up on YouTube, and it does look pretty spectacular. So if you're there in the area, if you're looking for a place to go to see Christmas lights, apparently that is the place to go in Spain. So my overall rating for this short trip to Vigo/Baiona, I would give it a 7 out of 10. It was a pretty good trip. Had more stuff been open, had we had a little more time there to be able to explore Vigo, probably would have gave it a higher rating. But again, 7 out of 10 is pretty good. If you have been to Baiona or Vigo, then put some comments in. Tell us what your favorite things are to see and do in this area. Give us some clues and some tips on points of interest that we need to see the next time we go. Next week, make sure to watch my video I'm going to do on our next port stop that was in Lisbon, Portugal, where we took an e-bike excursion around through the city, saw lots of really neat things, a lot of points of interest in Lisbon. Also, as usual, we'll talk about our likes and dislikes of all the things that we did in that port stop. If you enjoyed this video, as usual, like and subscribe, click on the bell to get those notifications. And until next week, have a good day and God bless.